Hello, hello, content batching party people. Welcome to October's Brand Voice content batching party. I'm Megan. If we haven't met before, I do office hours, onboarding, inbox support at MeetEdgar, as well as these content batching parties that we chat a lot about different themes, as well as to make sure that you can get all of your questions answered. So today, we do have a lot of people I notice who pre-submitted questions specifically about Edgar. So at the end, I'm going to stay on for quite a bit of time if you want to stay to make sure we get those questions answered. But at the beginning, I do want to focus and make sure we do chat a lot about brand voice. I have some slides prepared and some exercises that I'm hoping you all will join me with. But if you do have to pop out early, know that you can always send us your questions to support@meetedgar.com. Right here in the chat box, I'm going to go ahead and pop in a link. And this link is actually to our onboarding videos. So if you are new and you are looking to get questions answered about setup stuff, like I said, I'll stay till the end and make sure we get those questions answered, but check those out as well. One other thing before we jump into the actual webinar today, I do want to also let you all know, since it's something that we are doing this Friday. We do have a coffee chat on Friday, which is going to be super informal with our marketing director, Tom Tate, and our customer experience director, Christina. They're going to be chatting about the tools we use in our business, as well as the tools that you guys like to use. And it's super informal, like I said, just a chat. They give out Starbucks gift cards. It's super fun. That link right there will let you sign up for it. So if you want to meet with other small business owners, stuff like that, go ahead and grab that link. Awesome. So as you see in the chat here as well, Maura, who is our marketing and content manager at MeetEdgar, is going to be manning the chat. So please ask your questions as we go throughout this. We definitely want to get a lot of participation, and we're going to have what we call Edgar action times available during the slides, so we can all start chatting about brand voice and what we feel works for us. So keep your questions coming there. I'd also love to know where you guys are tuning in from. I'm in Denver, Colorado. Maura is in DC. Go ahead and pop in there in the chat where you're tuning in from and what business you're in. If you see someone in here who is in a similar space that you are and want to connect, throw in your Instagram handles, throw in your Twitter handles so that we can keep this discussion going after these content batching parties. Because one of our main goals at Edgar is to make sure, as small business owners and as solopreneurs, we're a remote company. So we work by ourselves typically every single day, just connected over the internet. So we know how lonely it can be on this side of the screen. So go ahead and share stuff in there. If you see someone who you want to connect with, go ahead and do it. It's an awesome thing to do with the Edgar community. All right, so for me, it is 12:02, depending upon where you are. It is either before noon or afternoon. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Keep the questions coming and keep up in the chat. I'm going to go through some slides real quick here and then make sure that we do leave time at the end for your questions that you pre-submitted specifically about Edgar, so I won't forget about those either. Awesome. Brenda, Bonnie, Jen, awesome. Looks like we have some super exciting people here. Ooh, you're close to Denver, Jean. Super fun. Awesome. Okay, so brand voice. Why does it matter? It matters because it shows your brand's personality and connects on a way deeper level with people that I think we all give credit for. This is one of my favorite pictures to describe it. We all know your brand voice is not just your colors and your font. It goes far deeper than that. But looking at this picture, I think you get the point on why brand voice really is so important, because you can convey the same message really differently depending upon the tone, as well as the colors, the fonts, the whole shebang. It can be so different depending upon how you convey it. So where do you start? It all starts with becoming really clear on what the promise is your company is making to your customer. Why do you exist? And what do you do to fulfill that promise to them is at the core of your brand voice. So your first step is to get really clear on what are you promising your customer, and make sure you are always over-delivering on that promise. That is how the strong brands really survive these days, is having a super clear vision and over-delivering every time to get that word-of-mouth marketing and to get that reputation of a brand that's super trustworthy. And trustworthiness leads to sales, as well as that word-of-mouth marketing, which is some of the strongest stuff out there these days. So let's get real. Most ideas are already out there. It is a busy, crowded space out there, and we are all grabbing for the attention of the right people who can really benefit from our services. So it can get a little bit frustrating. However, the world needs your opinions. It needs the way that you are going to introduce things, and that's where brand voice comes in. So if you're someone in a crowded marketplace or you have other competitors out there, that's a good thing, right? Because it means that there is a space for you and there is need for your product or service. But if you're just regurgitating how everyone else is saying it, it's not going to get you the kind of attention or the exact audience persona who you know you can speak to and help out with. So we need that brand voice to have an injection of your opinion in there and to really go super deep on things to make sure that you're standing out. So every piece of content should be filtered through this lens. And when we're going through your content within MeetEdgar, having this filter of your brand voice on each one makes it so much easier for people on every single network to really know that you're there and what you stand for. So what goes into creating this really strong brand voice? It's knowing your why your company exists. It's knowing how you are different from your competitors out there. What is your advantage in the marketplace that no one else can offer? Know who you are talking to. Having your ideal client in mind is one of the biggest things that is going to help you stand out with your brand voice when you're writing your status updates. Knowing your personality, people do not want to interact with a logo online, especially in social media. They want to act with a person. It is no longer B2B or B2C. It is H to H, human to human, that is winning online these days, and your brand voice is what's going to really make that stand out. And you need to know the mission of your content, and that can be tied into a lot of different goals that we'll go into a little bit later, but these are just some of the things that you really need to start to think about as you develop a strong brand voice. One of the ways I like to illustrate this is think of all these people here: Gary Vee, Oprah, Marie Forleo, Tony Robbins. They are all in the personal development and motivational speaking place, right? They all talk about basically the same concepts. However, they do it in a really different way. You have Gary Vee's energy that is far different than Oprah's energy. You have Tony Robbins, who is far different than Marie Forleo, but they can all exist because the way they are delivering their message is hitting people in different ways, and people are responding. So the people who really like the energy of one person isn't going to get as much from someone else. So that's what you need to think about to really get clear on why brand voice matters. It's because you're going to attract the people who like your message the best. So your turn, our first Edgar action item here is we need you to express one core idea to find your brand voice and express it in a bunch of different ways to know which one sounds right. So stop right here and start to think about your brand and start sharing it over here in the actual chat so we can see what's going on. And I'll share kind of how I see this going is think about Edgar's tagline, social media minus the time-wasting bits. We could say that, similarly, social media to save you time. However, our personality and our brand voice of being a little more casual and being a little more spunky and quirky comes out when we do it with that wasty bits part rather than just save you time. So think about your core concept of what your brand does. What are you promising people? Think about that pretty deeply now and go ahead and share a couple of different ways you could express that. See what feels right to you. Think about things that you could actually say in different words to convey the same thing. I suggest, like I said, if you want to share it here, we'd love to hear it. But if not, write it out 3 to 4 times, write it in different ways, see which one feels best to your brand and to the promise you're making. And that would really attract the right audience persona to you. So that's your first Edgar action item. Please take the time to do this to make sure that we are getting this learning in action, because we all know we can sit around and listen to webinars all day, but until we actually go in and do the work, nothing in our business is going to change. And if you want to have different results coming up in the 2020 new year, it is really important to kind of take the time to do this stuff. Awesome. We have some fun responses coming in. Mac, engaging members away from live events, personalized experience for your yacht purchase. Great, awesome. So think about a few different ways you could say these things, and that will really help you nail down your brand voice. All right, so as we go a little more, I want to share a quote that really helps me understand why this is so important too. Your company's stories, products, descriptions, history, personality, these are the things that go to battle for you every day. Your words are your front line. Are they strong enough? So the words you're using in these things are 100% going to battle for you and finding the right customers on social media. So you need to make sure you're thinking in terms of how these words are fitting in with your story, not just what you're sharing on your story, but how the words themselves are creating the story. Because your voice can stand out, like we were saying, there's a bunch of different people, but you are the ingredient that really makes it come to life. As we're doing this, one thing that I like to point out is that you want to make sure that your ideal client, and that's why having that audience persona in your brand voice is so important, is because having that ideal client in mind can make sure what you're positioning your client as the hero in their story, not your product. So that's something that's huge when it comes to brand voice and marketing, is making sure the person sees themselves in that hero's position, in that position of actually winning. So at Edgar, we are a software, but the stuff you put in to our software, that blood, sweat, and tears you're putting into your brand voice and every status update you're writing, that's where the gold is. That's where the ingredient that really helps out comes into play. We're just helping to get it out there, saving you time so you can work more in your zone of genius that way. So think about how your company can really make sure your brand voice is positioning your actual ideal client as the hero, and your product or service is there to lift them up to that status. That's one thing that works really well, and sometimes is a really subtle difference that brands can miss, because you don't want to be the hero. You want your ideal client to be the hero, and your product or service helps get them there. All right, so your turn again. What are the best 5 to 10 words that represent your brand? This is a big one just to have in mind, to make sure that these words are guiding your content's mission every single time. So brainstorm right now 5 to 10 words that best represent your brand. If you want to share them, I would love to hear them. And take these words, and then after the actual webinar today, we would love for you to make sure that they are established in a doc somewhere. Because if you are a solopreneur now and growing your business, and if you ever hire someone, this is going to be a huge document to make sure that everyone, whether they're a contractor or full-time employee, is following the same brand voice. So you're going to turn these into a brand voice guide. Let me show you an example of how Edgar does this. So we brainstorm a list of words that really describe who we are as a company and how we want our brand voice to come across, whether it's in your email, whether it's in your social media updates, wherever it is. And some of the words we brainstormed are casual, authoritative, empowering. So these were just our 5 to 10 words that you should be brainstorming now. And after the webinar today, make sure you have a brand voice guideline established in a Google Doc. For example, we took these words and expanded on them. We're casual, being easy to understand, as an underrated virtue. Explain things the way you would to a coworker. Use precise language, respect their intelligence, and don't be pretentious. So these things can dig a little bit deeper to make sure that you're really understanding what is behind each word. And every company, no matter how big or small, needs to have this brand voice doc established, really to make sure that you're staying consistent and recognizable everywhere. So 100% make sure that you're doing this. Diana, looks like you've got some awesome ones: empowered, female, beautiful, mature, wise. Perfect. That is awesome. Adjectives do make it a lot easier to come across as these brand voice, but as you noticed in Diana's example here, you know, female is a word that she put in there. It is going to be something that is a part of her brand, that female empowerment, stuff like that. So whatever it is that kind of speaks to you will work there, Jess. And one thing that can really help with this is to make a this, not that list when you're really niching down on what your brand voice is. So for example, you know, at Edgar, we're informal, but we're not sloppy. You know, we're going to use contractions in our writing, stuff like that, but probably not a lot of slang. We're an expert, but we're not bossy. We're going to have these things about us that is this, not that, that really helps narrow things down too. So if you're having trouble with this, really narrow it down to this, not that list, and your brand voice will become a lot more clear. You know, funny, not sarcastic, stuff like that can really help, especially as you're bringing new people on your team, zone in on the type of voice they should be using in every single internal and external communication you're going through. Now, I want you to use the opportunity to really make sure you're using this brand voice in everything. So for example, we use our brand voice even like on Edgar's 404 page. So if you ever get a 404 page on Edgar, you'll notice it's our little Odgar, which is our Edgar mascot with a little mustache and a little monocle. And that is a part of our kind of casual, funny brand voice. We look for every opportunity within our app, within social media, and within our email to use this. And it's really created a great way to be recognizable online. So you need to look for every opportunity to use this. This is one of my favorite examples. It's from the website Woot, which is like a one deal a day thing where they sell out of one thing every day. And on their FAQ page, they have this really great example of how they use their brand voice in there. It's this FAQ page about how can I get a refund? And they say, well, no, you can't get a refund. Not really. If you buy something and you don't end up liking it, or you have a marketing people call buyer's remorse, sell it on eBay. It's likely you'll make some money and save everyone the hassle. So they get that sarcastic, funny tone in there, and they get that brand voice in there. And it is so important to look for every single place that you show up online, your brand voice is there. If you're participating in groups, make sure your brand voice is there. If you're participating in any sort of email marketing, even if it's your customer support team versus like a marketing email, your brand voice needs to shine through in your FAQs. So as you're kind of going throughout these exercises of nailing down your word choices and nailing down your this, not that statements, go back, use that lens in everything that you're writing. And it's so great to see how it can be a cohesive thing for you guys. And really, while you're doing this, that example from Woo, it might offend some people, honestly. They might not love the fact that it's not a straight answer and it's not the answer they wanted. But remember, if you are trying to please everyone with the way you're speaking, you're not going to attract those strong super fans, those people who are going to go to battle for you and are going to be your word of mouth marketers. So make sure you're not speaking to everyone and pleasing everyone. You are pleasing your ideal customer, that one person you're writing for, having their traits in mind, having it in mind how you're going to help them, so that you are really niching down to speak right to them. And this is really going to bring up your confidence level once you start to see the right people really latch onto your brand voice. So make sure while you're starting to identify what you should be saying to people, that you're starting to put your personality in there. Remember that first slide, we were talking about the things you need. One of the things in there was your personality. You are the only you in your business. I know it sounds corny, but it's so true. You are the thing that makes it unique. So people are buying into you way before they're going to buy into your product or service. We talk a lot about evergreen marketing and making sure you have your story and all of your status updates and all that fun stuff. And that is really because when it comes down to that trust factor, which is that big conversion rate of how you're selling to people, people trust you. So you need to put yourself in there. People need to know what your values are. And more people are buying on values, and they want to connect with a company more than anything. And that's really a good thing, because we are getting into these smaller audiences who really connect with each other as well. So creating those moments and selling yourself is huge when it comes to making sure you show up in your brand voice. And how this really works is saying what you know. You know, we can all research a million things online and regurgitate what they're saying, but if you keep it really simple and you share your own life experiences and your own stories, that's going to inform your teaching in a way no one else can do it. And that's what's going to attract that small and bold and mighty audience to you. An example is at MeetEdgar. Laura, the founder of MeetEdgar, she went through a process that she shared her own story, where she was a graphic designer, hated her job, quit her job, started an educational business, realized that educational business was sucking all this time out of her trying to promote it on social media, that she wasn't able to actually create the courses she wanted. So she created MeetEdgar, a software. That is a story that only she has. No one else has that story. And sharing those details and sharing what she learned throughout that is a great way to connect to other people. And she grew a strong tribe who was a part of her educational business. And once she created a software, a lot of those people who needed it trusted her so deeply, they followed her when she made that pivot into software. So even if your brand voice is something that even if your brand is something that you're struggling with on kind of, if you're a multi-passionate entrepreneur, if you're someone who's not sure exactly what direction to take it, if you're making a pivot or something like that, your brand voice can still come throughout the whole thing. If you've been sharing your stories and your unique perspective, no matter what happens, you've built that trust up and people want to be a part of your community. So that's why it is clutch to have your personality in your brand voice. I know sometimes it can sound hard to do. I know sometimes it can sound pointless to do, but I promise you, especially in the way that marketing is going, people want to hear it. People don't want the perfect stuff. People want the real stuff online these days, but I know you all know that. So let's move on. One of the easiest ways to make sure your brand voice is being really authentic, buzzwordy, I know, but is to really ask your friends and family and say what you want to say with your brand voice to them. You know, those taglines that we're using, if you're reading a social media status update to them, say to yourself, you know, would my family think this sounds like me? Or would they be like, who's this talking? Really make sure that you're asking the 3 F's, especially if you're just getting started or if you're doing this like in the new year to start a new brand voice. Ask your friends, ask your followers, and ask your family. Make them a part of it. Ask them, what am I good at? How do I add value to your day? What is my natural vibe? And these answers that you're getting from your friends and family, these are going to be really important to use in your brand voice because they know you best, and you want to make sure your authentic self is coming through there. Because let me tell you, people online these days are sniffing out the fakeness. So if you're trying to like really force a brand voice on something, it's not going to work. And I know, again, this might sound really simple just to use your authentic voice, but trust me, it's going to be huge for your followers to be able to feel that. And if you're writing your status updates with that ideal client in mind and with your own authentic story and your own personality in there, that is going to be a magical moment for your followers to feel. And, you know, writing it with those attitudes in mind will come across on the computer screen. That is how brands are winning so strongly. That is how people like influencers are getting these people to have the engagement rates that you might want. If you see someone with a huge amount of engagement rates, they've done the work to really get to know who they're talking to, stuff like that. It is so huge for making sure you're coming across authentically. Another quote time, because I'm a sucker for quotes here. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Make sure you have 1,000,000% clarity on your mission. Why did you create this business? For Edgar, we created it so that small businesses and solopreneurs can save time and not have to log into 1,000,000 social media accounts and post, but they can start to create their business and start to focus on the things that matter. And it is a huge deal to us that we're allowing small business owners to save time on stuff and to really make sure that they are spending time working on the things in their business that are going to move the needle. That is a huge deal to us. Our why and our mission of what drives us excites us because we all love small businesses, and having that kind of vibe and having that in our mind all the time is huge. So what are you doing? Why are you doing it? People really want to know that why. So make sure in your status updates you have that why available. All right, so another Edgar action item here that I love for you to go ahead and start thinking about and start writing down and start sharing in the chat a little bit is your origin story is huge. As humans, our brains are really curious and really wired to be like, hey, where are you from? That's a really common question you ask people when you first meet them, right? Where are you from? That is because we love to know where people are coming from. So share that with your followers. Make sure in your library, you pop open your MeetEdgar right now, and you make sure you have something in there that tells your origin story. This is a great evergreen piece of content. You're continuously getting new followers, as well as people who might have followed you for a while and don't really know how you started. And this is a great way to get your why across, as well as to give them that curiosity and that, oh, cool, I know where and why this company started. So please, if you take anything away from this, one of the biggest ways you can get your brand voice really established and to get a great piece of content in your MeetEdgar library is to make sure you have an origin piece of how you started and what you do. What is your mission? Share your mission with your followers so everyone's on the same page and so they can rally around that mission. We are creating communities. Communities need to have shared values and shared missions, and that needs to be a part of your brand voice. So pop into your Edgar account and look around. Do you have a post in your library right now that shares your mission? Do you actually communicate that to your members? If you don't, make sure you take some time to add a couple of posts in there. It's great evergreen content. You don't have to share them all the time, but you could create a category in MeetEdgar and call it origin story or mission and share it once a week to make sure people are seeing these things to rally around a common value and a common mission. Because when it comes down to it, we want to have diverse followers. I'm not saying you want to have the same exact follower following you. They're diverse people, but all of these diverse people coming together with a shared mission and with a shared value that you make clear is going to make a really strong audience. I promise you, I know sometimes this stuff can sound a little crazy, but these things work. Have your origin story, your mission statement, and your values show up on social media. Make sure they're attracting the people who know they should be there. And as we started out talking about, go ahead and deliver your promise. Make sure 1,000,000 times over that you are over-delivering on your promise and making your promise known. Everyone's on their own buyer's journey, right? We have people following us who have just discovered that there's a solution for a problem that they have. And we have people who are ready to buy right away. So some people are going to be those hot leads ready to buy. Some people are going to be needing a little bit more relationship nurturing. And sharing these things over and over again are going to help that nurturing. And it's going to establish this, okay, I'm in the right spot and this is the right person for those people ready to buy right away. So please open up your Edgar account now. pop on in there and add some things about your mission, add some things about your values, make it its own category and share it once a week. It is awesome behind the scenes content that your followers will feel like they're getting from you that other people who aren't following you aren't getting, which is how you get that great tribe going. All right, another quote for you today. Your customer is an attitude, not a demographic. This is from Kate Spade, who has amazing brand voice online. If you go and you check out their stuff, it is down to a T. They know who they are talking to. And you need to have your customers' attitudes in mind as well. What makes your followers different from everyone else's? So you know what makes your brand different. You know what makes you and your personality different when you're getting these things into your status updates. Next, it's time to ask yourself, what makes your followers different? I need you to kind of think this through, because as you're going throughout this, like I said, to ask your friends, ask your family, ask your followers these questions, it's a process. A brand voice is not something you create once in a document, boom, done. You need to start listening and refining and knowing your followers. And we live in a really cool time for this, because with a couple of clicks of a button, you can get so much information on who your followers are, right? Like, you can go to their Instagram accounts, you can go to their LinkedIn profiles and start to see what they talk about, start to see the language that they use, start to see what they do in their days. This stuff, well, it might sound a little creepy stalking. Don't be creepy about it, but do it, because it is a huge thing for helping you refine your brand voice to make sure that you're showing up at the times of day that they're online with the language that they're using that resonates with them, so they can have those moments of, oh, they get me, I'm in the right place. And that's huge for making sure things happen. So go ahead and go to their Instagram accounts, Twitter profiles, and LinkedIn, see who they are, what business they're in, what age range, what they're talking about, and make sure you're incorporating that into your brand voice. Make sure their values are there. And make sure in your Edgar library, you're going in there and using that information so that you're talking right to them. Not every status update has to be something directly related to your company. Remember, the algorithms work in a way that they want your status updates to be really interacted with things like likes, shares, comments, that meaningful social interaction. And what's going to get that is really when someone feels inspired or entertained and educated by your content. And the way you're going to make someone feel inspired to change, feel like they're having a great laugh because of you, or feel like they learned something, is to know what makes them laugh, is to know what they want to learn. So go out there, do the research. All right. I was ranting, and this slide was probably supposed to be what I was ranting about, but here I go. Make them feel heard and understood. Ask them questions. Please have a questions category in Edgar. Again, go ahead if you have your Edgar open now. If you don't have a category named questions, go to your categories tab, click to make a new category, type in questions now, and make it a goal to ask some questions. These can be questions related to making sure you know who your followers are. People love talking about themselves. Ask them about the latest book they read. Ask them about where they traveled to. Ask them about what they're excited about this upcoming holiday season. Ask them questions to get to know their personal lives. It's going to be a signal to the algorithm people like talking to you. If you don't have a lot of good questions, one of my favorite things to do is to go to Google and go ahead and type in icebreaker questions. You can get some really funny ones, and they're really fun for people to respond to. So go ahead and make sure you have a questions category in there, because this will really help you define and refine your brand voice once you're seeing these answers roll in. Cool. And it's really not about having a megaphone on social media. It is not about broadcasting your brand voice out. It is about making it a living and breathing thing with your followers. Have a conversation, because what people are doing when it comes to buying things is to go on in there and say, you know, what is this business doing and why do I need them? In their head, they're having that conversation, and you need to have your brand voice established so you're showing up and saying, this is what I do, this is who we are, and being a part of that conversation. So remember, people are asking themselves and evaluating things, and your brand voice can really help you stand out on the other side of that conversation. So today, since it is all about engagement and that meaningful interaction with your customers, I do really encourage you to go through with a lens in your library now and make sure that you have things in there that you know your ideal audience would want to respond to and ask questions with. Diana, I will pop on in there and show you how to create a category in a moment here. Great question there. But yeah, in your library, do an audit, have these things in mind. Cool. And the algorithms really want to make sure that you're speaking to the right people. So as I'm kind of nailing this home now, think about algorithms as an asset to you, right? So a lot of the times your brand voice and the algorithm can work together, because if you're doing it right and you're attracting the right people to your posts with your brand voice, they're going to interact more. So make sure you have that in there, because the more interactions you have, even on your posts that aren't sales or traffic driving oriented posts, with your post's mission in there, it is going to make sure that the algorithms know, oh, this is relevant information that they want to see more of from this company, and have those show up over and over again. Cool. And you want to get really specific. The cool thing about niching down, no matter how many times you've heard it, niching down to blow up, whatever it is, that's that cutesy term out there, it's true. The more niche you can get and the more you can talk to one person, the better off your status updates are going to be at attracting the right person. And you can talk to them in a real and authentic way that way. So if you haven't done any exercises of getting your brand persona person down, do the work of naming them, giving them an age, giving them personality traits. And as you're writing your status updates, have that person's name or even a picture taped to your computer, so you are talking to one person. Cool. And make sure that they feel like they have a relationship with you. Your personality needs to be in there so that they can have that conversation with your company, and start asking yourself, you know, when my ideal audience persona goes online, what does she do? What can I talk to her about? What conversation can I have with her? Where does she visit? What books does she read? What does she do in her free time? And put that stuff in your status updates. It's all a part of your brand voice, so people can have a discussion with your brand in a real human way. Cool. And brand voice is not about buzzwords either. You know, think about doing a common keyword search for your industry. It's going to come up with things like, oh, we're a value-added full service. These things are just buzzwords. They don't mean a lot. So make sure that you're really zoning in on what is going to really help for you. One of my favorite things to help with this is answerthepublic.com. If you guys haven't gone here before, it's awesome. If you go to answerthepublic.com, you can type in a question, or you just type in something like, for us, we type in social media, and it gives you this huge spiral of questions people have asked online about social media. And that is a great place to start honing in and being like, okay, if within my niche, this is a place where I can find questions that are going to speak really well to what people are searching for online, what they're asking about, to make sure your brand voice and what you have to offer to that question, make sure that shows up in your status updates as well. So how this really happens is you really want to be the thermostat and not the thermometer for your followers. Make sure in your brand voice that you are showing up in a way that you're setting the tone for how people are replying to you. Remember, in our Edgar brand guidelines, we want to be really empowering. So we do have this atmosphere that we're like, you know what? There is no, I can't do this. This is pointless. It is, yes, you can do this. You're a small business owner surrounded by this community of other Edgar people who are really excited to help you get through that and to help push you there. So think about where you want to set that thermostat for your followers, so that when they reply back to you on social media, it is going to be a really cool community for other people to join in with the conversation. And really, you can't say the wrong thing to the right people. So that's why having this audience persona in mind with your brand voice is so important. You really need to say things that perhaps your audience is really thinking, but they might be afraid to say. These polarizing topics that you really believe in, don't just create a polarizing topic just to have it out there. But if you have something that perhaps you believe that might be different from what other people in your industry believe, that is a huge thing for your brand voice. Put that in there. That's what's going to make you different, and that's what's going to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. And really stop focusing on the followers that you don't have, and start focusing on the ones you do and talking directly to them. That's why doing that research, going to their profiles is so important. And if you're doing that right, guys, the number is going to follow. You're going to start hitting new people. So really make sure that you're giving your followers permission to be who they are with your brand and to follow along with your values and your mission. All right, one last quote time. I promise we're almost done with slides, and we'll switch over to questions here. But really, again, one of my favorites here is, when you write like everyone else and sound like everyone else and act like everyone else, you're saying our products are like everyone else too. Or think of it this way. Would you go to a dinner party and just repeat what the person to the right of you is saying all night long? Would that be interesting to anybody? Probably not. So why are so many businesses saying the same thing at the biggest market, at the biggest party in the marketplace? marketplace, okay? So what you are saying needs to be different from your competitors. So go out there and do a little competitor analysis and see what you can add and see the voice that you can bring to the conversation that might be missing. And you're gonna, again, stand out so much better than if you're just kind of regurgitating things. So block out the noise. No matter what you say, someone's going to judge you for it. That's just the world we live in. Sad, 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 but true, true, true. So make sure you're really staying true to your brand voice, who you are. People are not going to like you 100% of the time. That's just life. So make sure you are following these brand guidelines you set for yourself, and writing them down makes it so much easier to stay on that mission there. And you got to do what's right for you, and you got to do what's right for your followers there. And I wanted to do this brand voice guideline here, especially as we're going into the new year, because I think it's important to evaluate these things and ask yourself, you know, what can you give to your future 2020 business self? What can you gift them today by batching your content, making sure you're getting it into MeetEdgar with a strong brand voice, and that you can come across as really passionate and confident and get people really excited to follow you. These things are super, really kind of things that you might think you can put off, kind of doing your brand voice and being like, that's not going to get me more money. That's not going to go towards the bottom line. But it is a patience game out there, guys. The brands who are winning are being patient and staying true to their mission, their values, and their brand voice. And eventually it's all going to come together and follow along. The other reason I really wanted to do this is because Edgar is running a solo biz summit. If you haven't seen it yet, it's going to be on October 24th, completely free. The cool thing about it is actually it's going to have a lot of speakers outside of Edgar. That's the link there. If you haven't signed up yet, be sure to do so. Share it with your friends who are solo biz owners, because it's 100% free. And it's really fun to do. Lynn, yes, this is going to be recorded, and I will send out the recording to you. Now I'd love to switch over a little bit to kind of this idea of batching, what these parties are for, as well as answering your questions about MeetEdgar. Please keep the conversation going if you're working on kind of developing your own brand voice in those Edgar action time items we had, whether it's coming up with your 5 to 10 adjectives, your this or that list, anything like that. Keep sharing those things. We'll keep the chat going here. But since we did have a ton of questions about Edgar itself, I'd love to get those answered for you. If for any reason we don't get any of those questions answered, when I send out the replay, I'll send out this link as well. But right here is our office hours link. We run them every single day. It is a really small group gathering, typically 1 to 3 people, asking questions about Edgar itself, so sign up for that. But let me go ahead and pop over and share my screen so we can go into a MeetEdgar account. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And go ahead, and while I share my screen here, I won't be able to see the chat as much, but I'm gonna answer that first question. I think Bonnie might have it. I apologize if I'm getting the name wrong here. But when you're in your Edgar account, this is your categories tab, right? Your categories is one of the biggest drivers of why MeetEdgar works so well, because it really allows you to get an awesome mix of content, as well as keeps you super organized when you're batching your content. So this is a content batching party. We did go a little bit into more brand voice and higher level stuff, but essentially the concept of batching is making sure you're only having to make social media content either once a week or once a month, and blocking out maybe 2 to 3 hours to make it all and add it in here. And the reason that categories can be helpful in this is because you can create these categories, and say you have a category called like blog posts or tips or something like that. You can sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna batch out 10 new pieces of content in my tips category today, and that's gonna be my tips for the month. I don't have to write them ever again. I'm gonna put that category on my schedule and let Edgar send them out. Then the next day you can be like, okay, this is my 2-hour block to make sure I am writing all my quotes in this time frame, and then I'm all set. And these categories can really help guide that way, or you can do them all at once. You gotta find the way that works for you. But to create a new category in Edgar, super simple. Click add category here and name the category. You've got some pre-established ones within Edgar, so you can always click on this little pencil icon here to go ahead and rename a category, or you can remove a category if it doesn't make sense for you. When you're doing categories, I really push you to think about, you know, what are you an expert in? What pillars of content do you like to share? And how can you really make sure that your expert status is coming across? And to be an expert on something, you know, what that really means is to repeat over and over again that message, to make sure it drills home so that when people are finally ready to need a product or service like yours, you're a top of mind because you've been nurturing them along, showing them that you know what you're talking about, you know who you are, stuff like that. Then when you're adding your content to Edgar, when you click up here to add new content, it's going to come up with the category drop down here. And this is where those categories come into play. If I was adding a blog post, I'm going to go ahead and select Edgar blog post and write it here. Check off the accounts that this has permission to go out to. We always suggest amplifying your content out to as many people as possible and saving it to your library. We also got a lot of pre-submitted questions about holiday content. So how categories can really help with your holiday content is you can make seasonal categories or use our schedule at a specific time. So one way you can make a seasonal category to really speak into the trends that are going on and what's going on throughout the day is when you click to add a category here, you can name it something like, Black Friday deals. And you could add all of your Black Friday deals to that category, or you can name it like winter blog posts if you guys are doing a series of blog posts on like winterizing your house or something like that. If you make a seasonal category, make sure you uncheck this box right here that says to include when selecting random content to post. If you use a random time slot on your schedule, this will make sure stuff from this category does not go out. But make your seasonal categories, especially this time of year. Go ahead and make one here so you can speak into what's going on. Add your content, and you can add it now, even if it's like a Black Friday thing that you only want to run for a couple weeks or something like that. You can go click to add all of your content. And remember, if that category stays off of your schedule, so if you don't put that category anywhere on your MeetEdgar schedule, the content you're adding to your library in that category will remain in that category, but it won't send out. Once the time frame that you'd like those contents to send out, so let's say you want to post it a couple of weeks before Black Friday to get people really excited about a deal you're running, or perhaps it's those blog posts that should only run for a couple months in winter, you can come in here and you can pop your holiday category on wherever your holiday category is, check off the accounts you'd like it to go out to over on the left, let it run through those couple weeks or those couple months. Once the season is over, come back to your schedule and remove that category from your schedule. It is an awesome way to make sure that your content can continue going out on your evergreen schedule. So making sure your origin story, your mission, your blog posts, your quotes, your tips, all that stuff keeps going out. But you have these categories that are also speaking to what's going on during the day. Or during season, excuse me. So make sure you get those seasonal categories set up now. For the holidays also, I want to make sure you guys all know about our send at a specific time feature. We got a couple of questions about that. And what this is your evergreen schedule in Edgar based on the categories works in a last in, first out rotation. So those time slots, it's a 1 week view. It keeps going and going. But you might be thinking, what if I just want to send a Happy New Year's post out to my followers? Great news, we can do that too. So what you're going to do, same dealio when you're clicking to add content here, check off all the accounts you want it to go out to. Go ahead and select. Typically, I would say you could either make like a holiday category and just leave it off your schedule always, or a lot of people will use our general category just to leave these in. When you're checking off all your accounts, selecting the category here, advanced settings right here will allow you to mark it as a use once post. So really good if this is like a Happy New Year's Day or something like that. Go ahead and write your status update here. Now, next to this Save to Library button, there's a drop-down arrow. This drop-down arrow will give you the option to click the second Schedule, Send, and Save, and this will pop up a box where I'm able to put a day and time in here. If this box is populated with a day and time, the very first time Edgar sends this out will be on this day and time. So it's kind of like putting a start date on your posts or scheduling like a specific holiday post here. So I could put New Year's Day here, because I know I want to go relax with my friends and family on New Year's Day, but I still want to show up for my followers. Go ahead and get that Happy New Year's Day post here. Go ahead and get that really great motivational post out to help them with their New Year's resolutions, inspire them to start the new year, whatever works for your brand voice and your community, get it on in here. If it's something that's only appropriate to send out once, make sure you have used once checked and save it to your library, and Edgar will send it on that day for you. So that's the best way to do seasonal content in Edgar, is either creating a seasonal category that you put that category on and off your weekly repeating schedule, or you do your day specific ones with this little drop down arrow. So fun things there. As you're batching, If you're new to Edgar especially, these categories are really important, not to get too overwhelmed while you're getting set up. My favorite suggestion for getting set up quickly and batching content is to create your categories, your pillars of content, make a goal to add 10 pieces of content to each category. So don't think you have to get everything set up right away. Add 10 pieces of content to each category. Come to your schedule. When your followers are online, make sure you're placing those categories on here. And if you do 10 pieces of content in each category and you place each category on your schedule twice, it's going to give you a month's worth of fresh content, right? So Edgar goes in that last in, first out rotation. And if you get 10 pieces of content in a category, and that category is on your schedule twice, that means Edgar will start repeating that content in 5 weeks. It's all about the ratio of how many posts you have in a category versus how many times it's on your schedule. So that gives you an entire month's worth of fresh content that Edgar's sending out from you, which gives you time to then create more content, set aside a day to come into Edgar and batch out more content into each category. But don't feel like you have to get everything set up perfectly from the start. And as you start to build more and more in your library, you can then come in here and start to put more time slots on your schedule, making sure that you're batching content so you're not always writing social media status updates every single day, but you're doing it so that you have a thorough story that's always following your brand voice, that you're sitting down in a moment where you can be creative and have these touch points with people. All right, let me pop back into the chat before I start rambling anymore. Cool. So posting per day is completely based upon what platform you're doing, as well as your specific audience. So, some things I like to bring up, especially with like Facebook and with Twitter, is to make sure you're paying attention to your specific audience. So you can see, like, on our Edgar schedule, this is our MeetEdgar schedule. We post a lot on Twitter. Twitter is a fast-moving paced network. Timeliness is in their algorithm so much. So we don't want to post as much on Twitter as we do on Facebook. So you could create different categories for each of these if you wanted to control it, or just use the same category. But you can see on our schedule here, lots and lots of Twitter posts going out, because we know our main audience is on Twitter. We have a really active Twitter audience. So the first thing you have to decide is, where do your people hang out the most? Where do you want to focus the most? Because everyone's audience is a little different. Some people have a huge Instagram audience, so they create their content from there. And then they repurpose it for the other networks because they still want to have a presence there. But your main content is going to be for the network that you need to focus on growing first. We always suggest growing one network really strongly, but still amplifying it out to the others. For us, it's Twitter. So we post a ton on Twitter, but you can still see we show up once or twice a day on LinkedIn and once or twice a day on Facebook, but it's going to be super duper specific to your audience. So if you haven't ever used your Facebook insights to inform your schedule, this is what I suggest doing to get started. So this is obviously going to be the MeetEdgar account here, but you would do this in your account. So you're going to come to your MeetEdgar account here, and then you're going to go up to this Insights tab. So, sorry, not your MeetEdgar account, your Facebook page. This little red thing got me a little confused for a minute. So come to your Insights tab, come to the left menu that says Posts, and make sure you're looking what times a day your followers are online. So for us, remember, we are a social media company who works with marketers who are online during the workday. So our posts are going to be really segmented during working hours, but your audience might be different. You might have moms who can only be online when you are home from getting the kids or before they go to work. So your graph might be, you know what, my audience is online in the morning and evening a lot more. Look at this stuff to make sure you're not using just a one-size-fits-all answer, because that's not going to speak to your audience. So make sure you're coming in, looking at stuff like this to inform your schedule. We have a great help article here that gives you a lot of different kind of setup ideas depending upon kind of what you'd like to do. I'll pop this in the chat here. But yeah, go ahead and grab that and see. If you don't have a lot of data, that's the word I'm looking for, in your insights yet, this article, which the lovely Maura actually wrote for us, is a great place to start. It's an aggregate study with a lot of different, data pulled in to give you an idea of like what times a day each network typically does well for. So this can be a great place to start for finding out where you should put those time slots. But that is also why you really want to have your audience persona in mind, right? So you can think, what do they want to see when they get up in the morning? Can I create a category and perhaps call it like motivational mornings, and every morning have a productivity tip go out, or every morning have a motivational quote go out, putting that category on your MeetEdgar schedule every morning to create that consistency for your followers. So that is going to be a huge thing to do. There's that blog post if you want to kind of get those available, but that's going to be a huge thing that you could do to really make sure you're speaking to your audience, right? Is get in their mindset. What do they want when they wake up in the morning? A productivity tip, perhaps? Are they going and are they eating lunch by themselves? That perhaps they would want to read a blog post. Are you going to put your blog post category on your schedule in the afternoon then? Think about what they're doing. Perhaps when they get home, they have time to watch a video, or they have time to actually engage and respond. So you'd want to put your video category or your questions category at the end of the day when people will actually be there. Show up for your audience when it makes sense for what they're doing throughout the day. A really great way to kind of learn the kind of things you should take into your brand voice and maybe what your audience is interested in too. I love using analytics on Twitter for this. Let's see. Here. So Facebook is really great, like I said, for the times a day. One of my favorite things with Twitter is, and how you get here, I'm sorry, I should have said this, but just be logged into your Twitter account and type in analytics.twitter.com. It'll take you there. This is great to kind of learn what you could be posting throughout the day, like I was saying, when you're getting those time slots on your schedule. If you go to audience, so when you're on your Twitter analytics, if you go to audience here, do you know how much cool info there is actually about your audience? You can see what they're interested in. So you can see 98% of the MeetEdgar community is interested in dogs. Perhaps if we have a meme category that's just for our entertainment posts, we want to put some memes in there about dogs because we know our ideal audience is going to say, huh, love that, that speaks to me. It's a great way to get those, oh, you get me moments with your followers. If you come here on your Twitter account and see what they're interested in, perhaps if we have a curated other people's content recommended reads where we're putting our RSS feeds into MeetEdgar and having it pull in articles, we can go out there and seek out some that might be outside of just the business space that we know our audience would be interested in learning about. Science news, who knew? I sure didn't, but these things matter. It's speaking right into your audience and what they'd like to see. You can see what professions your audience is in, you know, what kind of things they like to buy. This stuff is awesome for getting your brand voice nailed down. So analytics.twitter.com, think about the times of day people are online, think about what they're really engaging with, stuff like that. Think about the medium they're engaging with, using this to inform your schedule because it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, right? So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if not. Let me scroll back here and see if we have any others. I know Maura has been doing a rad job making sure these are getting answered. Let me see here. All right, it looks like we got most of those. Do you guys have any other setup questions within Edgar I can get answered? I'm going to pull up the doc from pre-submitted questions here real quick and see if I haven't touched on those yet. So let's see, tagging. We did have a question about tagging. So of course we want to make sure that you are someone who is tagging companies and creating relationships online. So if you do want to tag within Edgar, let me share my screen here real quick. You can tag in Edgar for sure, but it just needs to be network specific. So when you click to add new content here, if you'd like to tag another brand on Twitter, let's say, make sure you're going ahead and connecting your Twitter account. The thing here is it can't be connected to any other network. If you want to tag, it has to only be connected to Twitter or only be connected to Facebook. If it is, just start typing the @ symbol and start typing in the name. I can type in that, it'll come up. Once that little tweet guy is established there, you'll know the tag is established. Same deal on Facebook, but it just does have to be connected to that one network. So Twitter is a little different. If you guys aren't aware, they do have a term of service that says you can't send the same tweet to the same Twitter account more than once anymore. Since we're on Twitter here, I'd love to bring this up real quick as you are getting your brand voice established. If you want to do a little A/B testing, we do have a variations feature that's pretty cool for A/B testing. So this was built specifically for Twitter so that you can reshare your blog posts and your evergreen content. But the cool thing is it can be used for all your networks to make sure you are getting the right messaging and seeing what brand voice is really resonating with your followers, what language you're using, stuff like that. So how you're going to do this is, again, checking off the accounts that this status update is going to be relevant to go out to, and going ahead and getting your status update written here. I'm going to go ahead and share this with a blog post because I'd love to show you, if you haven't found it yet, if you are new to Edgar, how this works. Oops, that wasn't the one. A blog post, not a help article. Cool. So I have this blog post here. This is our blog, could be your blog, could be any recommended reads you might find online. You're going to go to MeetEdgar and put your URL in here, right? You'll notice you have this auto-generate variations pop up. So if you're someone who would like to reshare this on Twitter or on any network, if I click this auto-generate variations, it's actually going to get some different pull quotes from within this article to snag out as text-only variations. So again, the reason this is so important for Twitter is because Edgar does have to expire a tweet once it's sent. But as a competitive advantage, you can still stay in line with their term of service, but reshare these evergreen blog posts. If you use this auto-generations feature, Edgar does all the work for you. You can also customize this. This is one of my favorite things because you can still give your audience a little nugget of gold in here. You can always edit these if you want, but your audience who might not have time to click through and actually read your blog post, they can still get that gem of really actionable information from your blog post because Edgar pulls that out right there for them. So make sure you're using that. When you click to add content here, if you want to test your brand voice and things that don't have a link, you'll notice that you also have this add variation button that you can do it manually. That'll pop up a second text box. So remember when we were doing that very first exercise in today's webinar, we were talking a lot about saying one thing in 5 different ways. If you're like, you know what, these all sound good, these are all great, test them all out. Add those 5 things to Edgar as 5 different variations here. They're not going to send out back to back. The variations send out similarly in a last in, first out order. But once one of them sends, the whole post is put to the end of the line in that category. Once it resurfaces based on the ratio of how many times that category is on the schedule, the second variation will send out, right? So they're not going to go out back to back unless it's the only post in that category. So it's a great way to test. And how you actually find out which variation is then doing best is in your history tab. In your history tab, if you actually go there and you click on this all-time clicks column right here, this will actually sort your entire history to show you the posts that have received the most clicks down to the least clicks. And if you click on this view performance history button here, it'll take you to a place where you're able to see, okay, cool, Edgar is going to go ahead and show me the variation that got the most clicks and the variation got the least clicks, and use this information. Go ahead and see, did I ask a question? Did I say a different word? Did I do XYZ differently? And use that, because remember, brand voice is a living and breathing thing, and you need to make sure you're paying attention because success leaves clues. Follow those breadcrumbs. Make sure you're building on those bright spots to really show up for your followers to see what type of post this was. Are they really resonating with a video? Perhaps you could then take all of your blog posts and make 1 to 2 minute videos out of them, upcycling it and getting those into Edgar. This medium of how the algorithm is showing video more than blogs can really be capitalized on if you're testing these things in Edgar a lot. So test them, use the variations, get your brand voice down, and win on social media in 2020. Simple, right? Like I said, I do office hours every single day, so I know that you might have more questions. Please come to one of those. We would love to see you there. They're typically, like I said, super small groups, so you do get to kind of chat. We can bring you on and chat, stuff like that. I'd love for you to come and hang out. Solo Biz Summit, come to that if you haven't yet. The coffee chat is tomorrow, guys. I'm going to send out a replay email as well as some specific answers to your questions today. I'll put the link in there to that, but come to the coffee chat. If you guys do have feedback on this specific webinar, send it to support@meetedgar.com or fill out this form right here, because we really want to know what kind of topics you guys are interested in learning about in future content batching parties. We do these every month. We would love for you to let us know what you'd like to learn about in a future one, and tag us on social media. We love giving away swag if you keep these conversations going. So let us know how you're bringing in these brand voice sort of Edgar action item steps into your daily routine, into how you're batching your content, stuff like that. Coffee chat, yes. Let me grab that for you. It's right here. Like I said, this will be Tom and Christina tomorrow doing it. So it's right there. Go ahead and sign up. It is super casual. It is just chatting about the types of tools. They'll be giving away a couple of Starbucks gift cards, so super fun. We just want to make sure that as small business owners and solopreneurs, we can all talk to each other. So come, have some fun there. And let us know, support@MeetEdgar.com. I'm going to be in the inbox all afternoon, so I'd love to hear from you. Maura will be on social media doing a Twitter chat directly after this. So if you want to pop over to the MeetEdgar Twitter, we are doing a Twitter chat over there where you can connect with more small business owners, our most favorite things ever. Okay, Jody, so the tagging again is going to be done in Edgar, but it does have to be connected only to that specific account, right? So that's what we were doing here is if you want to tag like on Facebook, you need to make sure the post you're writing is only connected to Facebook. It can't be connected to Twitter or LinkedIn either. Then just start doing the @ symbol and typing in the name of the brand. So like here, if I wanted to tag MeetEdgar on Facebook, I do that. You'll know it's a tag established there. So if you're like sharing curated content, tag them, make those great connections because it is all about collaboration over competition. That is doing the big winning today on social media. So yeah, tag away, make sure you're doing it. Just make sure the piece of content that you're adding is only connected to that network. Hashtags, yeah, definitely go ahead and if you add a hashtag to Edgar, it'll send on through, especially with Instagram. You know how we do it with push notifications, those hashtags will come through. Instagram hashtags, make sure you're using less than 30. We typically see the greatest success if you're using between 7 and 10, so make sure you're showing up on those explore pages, get some really popular ones in there, but also get some really kind of specific ones in there too. We love chatting social media, like I said, but I also want to respect your time, so we are right at 1 o'clock for me here in Denver, which means it is either 3 o'clock on the East Coast or noon lunchtime for you Pacific coasters. So go have yourself some lunch, have yourself a little break. We'll see you on Friday for the coffee chat and come hang out with me in office hours sometime. I love chatting social media and would love to see you guys there. Shoot on over to our Twitter account @meetedgar.com if you want to participate in the Twitter chat this afternoon too. Thanks so much. These are one of my absolute favorite things to do. So come back to next month's and I'll get the replay out as well as some questions answered to all of your guys' fun pre-submitted questions if we didn't touch on them today. Thanks for staying till the end, guys. Have a good one.